I'm trying something new today. It's called lipstick.
Lipstick.
Yeah.
Maybe I should try that.
I can pretty much guarantee you guys it will be all over my face by the end of this because I'll do this. Do it. You got lipstick.
We'll have chapstick. Same thing, right?
That's enough. Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody, what's up? It's a special hour early fireside chat. So
Sometimes it
yeah,
happens.
yeah. And yeah, looks like that we shocked everybody's system by going an hour early. But we couldn't help it. We
We couldn't wait.
sometimes yeah, we couldn't wait. We literally had to get to it. And Doug will get over it. So that's what I say
Sorry,
anyway.
Dougie.
Yeah, sorry, Doug.
He's probably got more people on sprints, but that's okay.
Probably. But
Everybody
that's why we record these. So
Mhm.
you can listen at your leisure.
At your leisure.
Yeah, I feel like I have chapstick like gooped up on my lips, and
See, be glad you're not wearing lipstick.
I
Because then
know,
you have
right?
to worry every time you. Do you know how many times I've worn lipstick and it's ended up like the Joker on that movie because I've like touched my face?
Oh, that was one of the worst parts of COVID because I mean, honestly, there were much worse parts of COVID, but for me, because especially in the springtime, I have all these allergies. Oh, Shannon, your secret is safe with me.
But not me.
In the springtime, I'm like my whole face itches and my nose, and I have this little tickly like allergy cough all the time. So when stuff was just opening back up, after shutdowns, and you could only like stores, you could have 10 people in, and everybody had to be 100 feet apart, all that kind of stuff. I would there was a little Dollar General a couple of miles from where we used to live, way out in the country, and I would go in there, and of course everybody's all masked up and all that, and I couldn't stop like touching stuff because it's springtime and there's pollen everywhere, and I would try to suppress this cough because I knew it was coming because when you've had asthma and then you get, the little allergy coughs, like, and finally you would hold it in so long and, and then everybody would look around like, oh my God, it's typhoid Mary, and
It's scatter. You get right to the front of the line.
oh, you get right to the front of the line. That's right. And
Strategy.
then if you kind of give a little half faint and, oh God, I think I'm going to pass out, people just get out of your way and just let you get right on through. So this just, our little how to deal with the pandemic. Anyway,
Are you ready for this? I'm so excited to talk about this today.
let's do it. A lot of times when we will have we're scheduling a fireside chat, I'll ask Abby, so do you have any topics that you want to talk about? And sometimes Abby will say no, and I'll come up with something, but this time Abby said, I've got exactly a topic, and she told me the idea for bridging the gap between the writer you are and the writer you want to be. And I think we kind of went back and forth a couple times till we landed on that title, but it was that gist, and both of us were like, yes, this is going to be a fun conversation.
Don't
So,
even give me credit for the title. The title was all you, Hank. The idea was me, but the
but
title was you. Look at
well,
this.
I took what you were saying, and I just
Condensed.
grabbed a title that it's just but the heart of what we're talking about is the fact that, and I'm going to paraphrase what you told me, Abby, and then you correct me because I will have gotten it wrong. A lot of times when we start writing, it's because we are fans of writers or certain books or certain ways that a writer has made us feel. And I know you've got a quote
I
that
do.
you're
I'm
gonna,
pulling it up.
of course, I knew you were, and so like when I first started writing, there were a handful of books in my mind that was like, if I'm gonna tell a story, I want to tell this kind of story, and this goes into your love of comps and all of that because You write a kind of story because you love a kind of story and you want to live in that world, so to speak. Um, and so we love these things and we want to do that to honor the feeling that we have, to contribute something else to the world, to make someone feel the way this author made us feel, is I think
Mhm.
kind of sums up a lot of times.
Very
Um,
much so.
but a lot of times when we write that thing that we think we're, in love with this idea and we're really going to make our mark, it doesn't always land the way we would want it to.
I believe the word you're looking for is cringe, Hank.
Well, cringe can sum up,
Mhm.
because while we love this thing, we don't have the practice and we haven't built the chops. We haven't put enough tools in our writer toolkit, to borrow a metaphor that I love to use, uh, to to present what lives in our head out to the rest of the world yet.
Or we have the tool. We're aware the tool exists.
Yeah,
We haven't practiced using it enough to be very good at it because
right,
it's just like when I was teaching high school fine arts and I was teaching drawing. We all knew how to use a pencil. We all knew what a pencil was. We all knew what a pencil could do. We've been
right,
using pencils at this point because I was teaching high school, our whole lives.
right.
But using it in the way that you needed to use it to draw in the style with which I wanted to get them to practice, that's a totally different story. And so
Yes,
that's what we've got to figure out. Do you want me to read this Ira Glass quote just in case anyone's
absolutely.
ever heard it? I think this is one of the most phenomenal quotes when it comes to talking about exactly what this is, the gap between being the writer that you are now and the writer that you want to be. So Ira Glass said, "Nobody tells this to people who are beginners. I wish someone had told me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste, but there's this gap. For the first couple of years, you make stuff and it's just not that good. It's trying to be good, it has potential, but it's not. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is why your work disappoints you. A lot of people never get past this phase, they quit. Most people I know who do interesting, creative work went through years of this. We know our work doesn't have that special thing that we want it to have. We all go through it. And if you're just starting out or if you are still in this phase, you got to know it's normal. And the most important thing you can do is do a lot of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week you finish one story. It's only going through a volume of work that you will close that gap and your work will be as good as your ambitions. And I took longer to figure this out than anyone I've ever met. It's going to take a while. It's normal to take a while. You've just got to fight your way through. And I mean, I feel like I took a long time to get to the point where I feel like I started to catch up to it. I'm a slow learner. It took me 8 years, 6 books, 7 books.
Well, and some of us just practice our craft in front of everybody. You at least had the good sense to to not, just go public with it. Um,
Well, I went public on a podcast where I was coached through writing my first book very publicly. All of my mistakes were out there, are still out there. I don't want anyone to go looking for them. Let's just let that sleeping dog lie. But yeah,
well,
look,
yeah, I mean, I started a podcast, 15 years ago because I wanted to learn to be a better writer, and so kind of the same thing. I aired out all my dirty laundry just in front of God and everybody for 15 years. So yeah, yeah. And that quote is such a great quote that you read, and that's why sometimes you just cannot sum up all the nuance into one sentence. Sometimes you just need to let it all breathe. But it's yeah. So that idea of taste, we know what we want. We know and I think it transcends taste a little bit. Like it's like there's taste, there's your what's the word I'm looking for? The appreciation for the thing, and then there's also the art of it that kind of transcends taste and gets to the heart of the matter. And that's another thing. Sometimes we love how an author made us feel, and we
Mhm.
want to deliver that same thing to someone else. And that does involve taste to a certain degree, but it's also kind of working on the art of bypassing all of the things and getting right to where they live, if that makes sense, you know. And so it all kind of inhabits the same space, but it's a little different nuance. But I think it all, the problem for both of those things is still the same thing. We're just not practiced enough. And if we use the tool metaphor again, if I hand you a hammer and I give you a book on how to appropriately use a hammer, um, you can know all about the tool. You can understand the damage that can be done with a hammer. But if you've never held a hammer, but I've given you an instruction manual and then give you a box of nails and tell you to go hang pictures in the house, you're going to have holes all in the sheetrock because you haven't practiced the tool. You understand how it works, but you haven't worked through the mechanics of making it work.
So I used to have this a metaphor because I did work with a writing coach
Yeah.
uh, at the beginning, and I had to seek out a writing coach
Yeah.
because I took a bunch of online courses, I read a bunch of craft books, and I knew I wasn't getting it right. And I said, it's kind of like the difference between watching a yoga DVD and actually going to yoga class, because you watch the DVD and you think, oh, I'm bending my body in the right way for this downward dog, right? And then you go to class where somebody sees what you're doing, they're like, girl, if you don't stop that, you are going to get hurt.
Yeah. Or have the police called on you. I
Yeah,
mean,
one of the two.
I'm just saying, downward dog can go horribly wrong if you're
It
not
could,
careful.
it
It
could.
could. I'm just
So you got to find you got to find your own way.
yeah,
And I had to enlist help to find my own way, because again, I already said doing 8 years, 6 7 books to do, 6 7 books to do, my children would tell me. But there's a compare and despair that I think happens, and Ira alluded to that in his quote when he said a lot of people give up, and that's what I don't want to see happen to anyone. I mean, I didn't give up for that many books and
yeah,
finally got to a point where I felt comfortable enough putting something out into the world. And those books that I finished that are in my proverbial desk drawer, I actually have recently gone back and looked at every one of them and realized they actually aren't trash like I told myself. They're all just still sort of first drafts, but I
yeah,
didn't have those tools yet, or I wasn't practiced enough at those tools to be able to give them justice. But now I can. And so none of that was lost work. None of that was throwaway work. All those learning projects, I think, are ripe to come out into the world pretty quickly, because now I know how to fix them. And I hate to say the word fix because they aren't broken. They just weren't quite there.
right.
And we've been talking about this somewhat in cohorts,
Yeah,
because as you alluded to, I love a good comp. But sometimes the problem with comps is you do compare and despair. There's something that you want to do,
yeah,
and you attempt to do it, and you only get partway there. So there are some things that you can do, I think, that help you bridge that gap. I mean, and of course, Ira Glass hit on the biggest one, which is you just keep making work, right?
Yes.
But there's one strategy that I'm going to share with you that I learned from a romance writer. So, Hank, you've met my friend Michelle Hazen,
I
right?
have. I have.
She's a romance writer, she's an editor, she's a book coach. She's very funny, she's very smart. And she was talking to us once on my podcast about how to write a sex scene. Now, I write middle grade.
I was about to say
I
probably
don't
not territory the middle grade author has trotted much.
I don't need to know how to write a sex scene. As a matter of fact, the farthest any of my books would ever go is a first kiss. And do you know, I had the chutzpah that I wrote Danielle Steele's like PR people and asked her to come on my podcast and do an episode to teach me about how to write a first kiss, not realizing that Danielle Steele hasn't done an interview since like the 19s.
Oops.
I was like, oh, I
My
got a
bad.
very nice no from Danielle Steele's office. But Michelle came on the podcast, and one of the things that she said was, look, you're going to write your first sex scene, and you're going to be like, oh my God. I can't believe I wrote that. That's terrible. Like, talk about cringe. It is 100% cringe. She's like, you're going to feel like that for probably the first 20 sex scenes that you write. So her advice was to write the sex scene and then put it in the shredder, like physically put it in the shredder so that you wrote it, you read it, you give yourself a moment to cringe, and then you stick it right in the shredder. Then you write another one and you stick it in the shredder. And you write another one and you stick it in the shredder. And you keep writing them and shredding them until you write one and you go, you know what? I don't know that I want to shred this one. And then you're on. You're on.
And then
Or
you're
off
on.
races or whatever euphemism you want to insert into that.
So, when we first started talking about this, I was thinking, part of the problem is the amount of weight that we give that first book that we publish. And we've talked about this before, that, a common problem that people have when they're writing that first book is, I'm saying everything I ever wanted to say in this one book. And one part of that is we're just naive and we've never done it before, and we don't realize that shiny object syndrome is a thing. And while it is a detriment to keeping you from finishing a project, it's also your subconscious mind letting you know there's plenty other story fodder in here. That's, when you finish this, we've got plenty more to do. And we kind of feel like that first book has to be monumental. It's got to say everything we believe and everything. It's got to be the great 20th century novel, even though we're not in the 20th century anymore. Don't at me, okay? Just, the great 21st century novel. And that's a misnomer, because while that may be great and it may be everything you feel at the moment, tomorrow you may feel different things. You may believe different things.
You have a different set of experiences.
That's the human condition. And your job as a writer is to chronicle the human condition. And while sometimes it may be more serious and literary and, may feel like I'm chronicling the human condition, it may be sci-fi fantasy, an epic romp that in the midst of it tells the truth about some things. That's what great writing is entertains while also, saying what you believe about the world.
So I have a question for you, Hank.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Your very first book, which, by the way, you guys, Hank and I do something that I think is very fun, which we occasionally do a dramatic reading of the first pages of the first books that we ever wrote. and Hank's is much better than mine. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. But
Much darker, that's for sure.
it was, yeah. Uh, did you publish the first book that you ever wrote, or did you
Yes,
write something that did not get published first?
I did publish it.
You
Now I
did.
later unpublished it, but I did publish it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. As I learned more about writing, as I became a better writer, I unpublished it, and it's sitting in a dabble project, and I will republish it one day, but I'm constantly kind of monkeying with it because it could be better. I could have done things better. I could have yeah, it was I was too close to it. I was just, it was that first book syndrome, like I dumped everything into it and it it just didn't need everything.
But indie publishing people, that's one of the beautiful things that I think they learn that way.
Mhm.
The people who are really indie minded,
Yeah.
right, will publish the first thing that they write, knowing that they have control to change it as they learn more, but
Yes.
they put it out and then they get the feedback that they can then use to adjust it, to change it, to learn, to grow, to whatever. Whereas I was more trad minded. And when I knew that first book wasn't up to snuff, that's when it went in my drawer. So there's two different
Yeah.
strategies
Yeah.
that really you can take, and it just depends on, you know, how you want to grow your career
Yeah.
as a writer.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
I've been thinking about too. So my girlfriend, we were talking about her. Uh, was it this week or was it last week? We were talking about my friend Ruth, she's a romance writer, um,
Yeah.
Ruth Cardello, and she was my next door neighbor in Rhode Island, believe it or not. And she was a kindergarten teacher before she was a romance writer. And she, to this day, was like, I should have written under a pen name because she put her first book out while she was kindergarten teaching and had parents buy it. And I think then question what their child's teacher was doing in her
Yeah.
off time.
Hopefully this was before social media though.
This was, yeah, kind of in the advent of indie publishing
Whoo.
way of things. She actually very quickly transitioned out of classroom teaching and to being a full-time writer. But she was telling me that she worked on this book for years.
Mm.
Her first book, which was not the book that she published first, but she worked on this first book, and it was a space opera. And
Mm.
she was beating her head against the wall because she just couldn't get it right. And she was part of an in-person writers group, and she showed up month after month with, her drafts of this space opera. And finally, one of the other writers pulled her aside and was like, Ruth, when you read like for fun, what do you read? And she was like, well, I read romance. And the writer said to her, why are you writing a space opera then?
Well, Nicholas Sparks, the author of a bajillion, love story, he says he doesn't write romance, he writes love stories.
Oh,
That
that's kind of
that
sweet though.
yeah,
You
that
were
sounds
thinking
like
it was cringy, but I was like,
well, that sounds like a guy who's, who has broken into romance, that I don't write romance. But he started writing horror, and he wrote like 5 horror novels that he couldn't sell. And then he turned around and wrote The Notebook because his wife's granddad or something was dying. I don't remember the exact story, but and it's like a 52,000 word novel, something like 52, 54,000, something like that. And it went to a bidding war, and he got like an over $1 million upfront signing bonus, when he had written 5 failed horror novels, and he really, really, really wanted to write horror. Like that was his passion.
yeah.
But, but he found he obviously had a passion for
Uh-oh. Hank froze.
your failure is you're in the wrong place.
You
Is my
froze.
internet dropping out?
You
Hello?
froze at this.
Hello? Hello? Abby?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I guess my internet was dropping out. You disappeared. I disappeared.
You froze on my screen like this.
Ooh.
Speaking of horror.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Interesting though. So that, we've got these writers, and so I started thinking about that story with Ruth because I was watching, your phone serves you up all those
Mhm.
reels or TikToks or whatever, those little looping
Right.
videos. And somebody had one, and they were talking about rejection with writers, and they brought up J.K. Rowling and all the people that rejected, like Harry Potter, and said that she had something though that like drove her forward. I actually think the video was supposed to be about like manifestation, but it said she had certainty. And there's just something about that word certainty that I kind of started thinking about. And, I when I very first started writing, I wrote one or two adult books that I don't even count, by the way, in my book count when I say 6 before I published. I
Yeah.
had 2 adult books. One that I was like 30 or 40,000 words into, the other that I finished, written for adults that were so, so bad. I knew nothing about what I was doing. And but I ultimately realized I didn't want to write for adults. I wanted to write for kids. And Ruth had told me, well, why don't you learn to write romance? She's like, if you write romance, I'll help you. Now, here I had this New York Times bestselling author willing to sit next to me quite literally in person and hold my hand to help me write romance. And I was like, I don't want to. I want to write for kids. So that's interesting hearing about Nicholas Sparks having written horror first.
5 horrors. 5.
Horrors.
5 failed horror books.
Because I have a certainty that what I want to do is write for kids, and I don't want to let that go.
It's interesting that as I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I got that information about Nicholas Sparks from he wrote a memoir with his brother, and it was called like 3 Weeks with My Brother. That title is probably wrong.
That's
Don't
all we
quote
can
me.
stand to be with our siblings for, by the way.
Right.
Really,
But he and his brother took a world around the world trip where they literally toured the world in I think 3 weeks, and it was wild. It was wild. So it was their like memoir of this, but in amongst this, they were telling stories about their childhood, and they had a jacked up childhood. Let me just tell you, wild, wild, wild. And I was thinking about it a while back. I wonder if his need to write horror was because that's where he came from, and that's kind of what he associated his upbringing with. But then he got married, and his life literally changed. He became a family man, and like that was kind of his personal redemption story. And so his writing is a reflection of his personal redemption. Maybe I'm like reading way too much into this, but maybe that's why. I don't know.
I kind of love that, and I want that to be his story. So in my head, that's now his story. Hank.
That is his story. Yes,
Yeah.
That's officially it. So Nicholas, adjust your bios
accordingly.
But that is, I think that's part of it. Abby is finding out. Because some of the things that we write are not going to be successful, and that's something that you have to come to grips with. Is that, and of course, for every rule, there's an exception. So we're obviously gonna, if anyone who disagrees with me is gonna be able to say, well, I can name a handful of authors who their breakout book was a massive, huge success, and all that. There are exceptions to the rule. The rule is most people will accumulate a body of work, and that body of work will get better and better and better, and the body of work will grow with the as the writer grows, matures,
Or
is able to achieve better taste, whatever the
those breakout debut novels, though, sometimes are not the first book that person has ever written.
right.
It's just the first book they've ever published.
Right.
That's
And
one.
and then you've got the weird scenario like Ernie Klein, who wrote Ready Player One. Massive, massive breakout. First thing he ever wrote, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's true. And then he tried to publish follow-ups.
I couldn't.
Just not great.
One hit
Not
wonder.
great. So he had a great idea, and then he's probably had other good ideas. So then you say, well, was his success so big from that breakout book that he wasn't hungry anymore? That's a thing that can happen.
Mhm.
Maybe he just had one good idea. I don't know. Maybe he just happened to stumble onto the recipe for what the market really, really wanted at the time. I don't know.
But man, he wrote a genre-changing book.
Yes, literally.
I mean,
Literally defined a genre. Yeah.
holy cow. If you're going to just do one, go
Yeah.
big or go home. That
Go
was it.
big or go home. And then he wrote a sequel to that, Ready Player 2, trash. Do not waste your money. And then he wrote another book called Armada. Armada is an okay book.
Mhm.
It's literally the 80s movie Flight of the Navigator. That's
I love
literally
Flight of the Navigator.
yeah, but it's Flight of the Navigator written by somebody else 30 years later.
And without Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So yeah, it's okay. It's fine, and if you're a 80s kid like me, yeah, I enjoyed it. It's just not, it wasn't groundbreaking the way Ready Player One was. And everyone reviewed that book in light of Ready Player One.
Oh,
So
it wasn't Matthew Broderick, by the way.
it was some kid.
Joey Kramer.
Joey Kramer.
Joey Kramer. I pulled it up because I'm like,
Okay.
did you know Pee Wee Herman was in that one?
No, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Paul Rubens or Pee Wee Herman?
Paul Rubens.
Okay.
Yeah, Paul
I
Rubens.
have to go back and watch that now.
It was Trimaxion. Was that the name of the navigator? Was that the name of the ship?
Maybe. I can't remember.
I mean, it's only been probably 20 years since I've seen this movie.
Yeah, and I'm conflating the movie with this book I was just talking about. I can't separate the two now.
Apparently, I was thinking of Project X or something, whatever, when I Project.
There's so many of those movies that were so close. But but it was a good book. It was a fine book. But because everyone read Ready Player One, because before that, they judged this one as trash compared with the groundbreaking work that he did before, and that was unfair because this book will never get a fair shake because of the breakout book. So that my whole point is those are exceptions to the rule. Those are not the rule. Most people write a good book, and then they write a better book, and then they write a better book, and if you learn to love an author, you will join them on their journey, and you as a reader will mature, and your taste will mature along with that writer, and that's perfect. That's fine. It does. Your first book you publish doesn't have to be exceptional. It needs to open the door, and we put this weird and this is one reason why, like, I used to do a bunch of like indie success story shows where people just knocked it out of the park and they became millionaires, over a weekend, and all this weird Kindle Gold Rush stuff that happened in the early days of indie publishing. And I quit doing that because it gives people the wrong idea of what is it possible? Sure, it's possible. This handful of people did it, so it's possible. Is it probable? No, no. And it was a wild set of circumstances where everything lined up just right. The books might not have even been great. The writers probably went on to do much better work after that, but it all got tainted by this weird confluence of market variables and stuff, and so I just kind of started steering away from that stuff, and I'm much more interested in the authors that have longevity and are building a body of work and building a career. That's much more interesting to me.
So I got another question for you.
Yeah.
What is it that is motivating you to keep writing and keep doing the next book?
Um, I think I'm more interested in uh yeah, early in my writing career, I wanted to be one of those breakout successes. I wanted to, and I'm much less interested in that now than I am building a readership who loves the kinds of stories that I tell and that um am able to entertain, am able to I don't even like the whole life changing, I don't necessarily expect one of my books to change somebody's life. I'm not that narcissistic. But I want someone to have a good time reading it. I want them to leave thinking about something. Yeah, and I think those things are more important to me now. I have a day job that I love, so I'm not actively trying to write my way out of something,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
mm, those things are just not as important to me anymore, and I really want to, um, and I don't want to sound so pompous to say I really just want to be an artist, like
You're talking to
I,
the right person, though. You can say that.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, kinda, like I want to be known for the work that I do, and you know, uh, if it sells a million copies, wonderful. If it sells, 20,000, I'm perfectly happy. I just knowing that I connected with someone is kind of my big goal, I
Mhm.
guess. So what about you? What do you hope? Because I know that you have kind of some grand plans that you would love to do, and I think we all do. I think there's kind of there's our expectations, and then there's like the big dream because you still kind of need the big dream. This is what keeps the fun in it. And I know you have some of those, but what is your like what do you if someone discovers, your 50 books that are published, what do you want from them? What do you want them to get from you?
So I mean, right now I have drive and I have motivation, and I don't know, maybe we're kind of splitting hairs at the difference, but like the thing that drives my work is that I just like at the end of the day is I want kids to love to read so that they then grow up to then want to read your books, you know? I
Yeah.
mean, I just want them to love to pick up a book and disappear into a story that is a world that they don't necessarily live in but wish they wanted to. So when
Yeah.
I was young, books gave me that feeling, and there were a few TV shows that sort of gave me that feeling too, where when you watched them or you read them, like the rest of the world sort of disappeared. And I had a very idyllic childhood. I mean, my childhood was about as close to Leave It to Beaver as I think you could possibly get. Right. So, like, it's not like I needed my world to disappear, like I think some kids might need.
Yeah.
But I used to be obsessed with this show, The Wuzzles. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
I don't remember the
Very
Wuzzles.
short-lived show, probably for a reason. Something about it caught my imagination and would not let go. And there were several books that also did that, like all of the Beverly Cleary and Judy Blume books.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, I loved, loved, loved them. I want to be able to do that for a kid. Even if the kid never remembers my name, but remembers
Yeah.
the main character, that is a win. That is what I want. But I think the thing that's currently motivating me to get my butt into the chair is I sort of have a real like middle finger energy going on right now because I've recently been told that a certain organization is not going to quote unquote endorse my work, which makes me think, fine, you don't want to be associated with my book. I'm going to make you regret that you did not want to be associated with me. And now I'm like, I'm going to be the next dog man. I'm sorry. That's just the way it's going to work out. So I have an added motivation right now that is driving me forward. And we all probably need that every once in a while, that little kick in the pants to make you go, you don't think I can do this? I'm going to show you.
Right. Right. I was just scanning the comments here, and Bond brings up a great point, and I think this is something
Mm,
that we talked a lot about
yeah.
last year when we did our short story challenge. But yeah, if you read any of Ray Bradbury's, I've got a book of Ray Bradbury uh, essays, and he talks about this that all writers should start writing short stories. And of course, when Ray Bradbury said that the marketplace was very different, you could sell short stories and you could make a living selling short stories. That's but his advice about that was still worthy, that you should start writing short stories. You should write a different short story every week for a year, because surely you can't write 50 bad short stories in a row. Kind of tongue in cheek, but that is a very quick way to kind of iterate on an idea and to earn those chops. And we need to talk more about short stories soon. So thank you for that comment, Bon. I think
Maybe
that's great.
that'll be the next fireside chat.
I think it just might be, and we've got to do some short story content coming up. Anyway, that's beside the point. But yeah, if you're a new writer and you're trying to get to that point, maybe you realize that your writing is not where you want it to be. Maybe your ability to turn a phrase is not, your ability to wield a metaphor, the way that you really want it to, is not there yet. Start writing short stories, write 10,000 words, and then put that on your hard drive and write another 10,000 word story, and keep doing that until you start to see the problems with your writing, or the shortcomings with your writing, or see the opportunities to be better. And that gives you a quicker way to keep iterating and iterating until you figure out the mechanics of it. That's an excellent way to practice your craft.
Yeah. Yeah, we did the short story. I'm telling them in the chat. We did the short story challenge. It was last February, wasn't it? Or was it
Yes,
March?
it was last February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a month, write a short story in a month. So we had a longer lead time than the write one every week. But
Yeah. So we need to do that again. So yeah, we'll
we have so many ideas, you guys.
so
You put
many.
Jake and I together, and we're like, you know what we could do? We could do this. We
We
could do that.
you
We
know
could do this.
right, and
Surprised they haven't separated us and not
yeah,
let us
yes.
do it.
Yesterday we were literally thinking of ways that we could take the cohorts that we've done and take them to the next level. And uh, so much to do in so little time.
That's right.
Yeah. So Abby, what as someone who wrote 6 books and then really started figuring out how to take what you've written and publish it, get it publishable, all of that. What um did you see the disconnect between the writer you wanted to be and the writer that you were, and how did you
Yeah.
address that? Or,
I mean, when I wrote the first book, I queried it. I queried it to about I think only 25 agents. I got one full request from it from 25 agents. And then,
Yeah.
I got rejections, a handful of just crickets, that sort of thing. But as I was waiting for the rejections to roll in, I started writing a second book. And the reason why I didn't send that 26th query was because I realized very quickly that the second book was better than the first one.
Mm.
And then I went to query the second book, and the same thing happened. I only sent out so many queries, and then I realized, oh, that third book that I'm writing, I actually think it's better than the second one. And it was this whole rinse and repeat cycle where I recognized as I was finishing a book and then starting the next one that the next one felt stronger from the beginning. And my husband, Sean, made fun of me every time I started a new one because I'd say the same thing. This is going to be the one. I'd be like, this is it. This is going to be the one that does it. And then inevitably, I'd put that one in a drawer and I'd start another one. This is going to be the one. But it was Michelle Hazen who finally said to me, we were talking one day and she said something along the lines of, I wish every writer would write like 6 books before they'd query. And then I must have made this face because she looked at me and she was like, why are you making that face? How many books have you written? And I was like, 6. Why the hell haven't you? What? You need to just, and then it was like she just shifted. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
Because she said that's the other thing that happens is then you end up in a situation like me where you're convinced that everyone is better than the next. When do you decide to just pull the trigger? When do you decide this is the one that just needs to go out and you just
Yeah.
need to let people read it and see what happens?
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just a gut feeling.
Yeah.
I think really is what it came down to for me. Just
Yeah.
that.
And I think there is that there definitely is something to practicing and iterating and getting better at your craft. And the first thing you write doesn't need to be the first thing that you publish in most cases. Of course, there's exceptions to every rule. But there also comes a point, like you, Abby, where you have to pull the trigger. You just have to say, okay, this is going to go out. It's got to find an audience. People have to tell me if what I've created resonates with them, and you just have to do it. You just
I
have to
mean,
do it.
I was scared out of my mind. And I
Yeah.
think I was hiding behind the query process in many ways because I wanted someone else to tell me it was good. I
Yeah.
wanted someone that I saw as like an expert in the field
Yeah.
to tell me that it was ready. But I think even though you might have an agent or a buying editor or someone at a publishing house that tells you it's ready, we've all read those books that were like, ooh, that wasn't ready. And I think I had to accept that it really had to come from me.
Yeah.
To see if I really thought it was ready to share.
Yeah.
And, ultimately, if the kids like it, I decided I don't really care what the adults think. So
Right. Right. And and you're in such a weird position because the buying audience is not necessarily the reading audience,
yeah, there's gatekeepers.
which is a super weird position to be in. And but you have the right attitude and the perseverance and the tenacity to keep kind of whittling at those gates until
Yeah.
something happens. And which you got to have, you this is not a business for the timid. It's just not. There's there if it's dealing with lagging sales or dealing with the reviewing public, there's going to be challenges every time. You've got to be the kind of person that can see those challenges and say, okay, well, next time I'm going to do this differently, and keep trying. But one thing that I've learned is when you finally get over that initial fear and put something out there, the second time is a little easier, and it's a little easier. And then you get that one 5-star review and you're like, okay, I connected with someone. Like they get it. They get me. And then you get the negative reviews and you're like, okay, well, they didn't get me, but this other person did,
Okay, so I haven't looked at my reviews in a while,
Yeah.
but I had some reviews that made me feel so stinking good that I was like, I'm glad those were the first ones too, because the bad ones are going to roll in at some point. I
Yeah.
mean, Jane Austen gets bad reviews, and I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
she can get them, anybody can get them.
Right.
But it's, I think what it boils down to is we got to be prepared to play a long game. If
Yeah.
that's bridging that gap between who you are now and who you want to be, that's a long game between, beginning sales and, sales when you have a dozen books. That's a long game. Like, I mean, this whole thing, it takes a long time to write a book. Like,
Yeah.
this is not an instant gratification field.
Right.
It's
Right.
really not. And I think that's when I was in art school. I never wanted to be a photographer, by the way, because that felt way too instant gratification for me.
Mm,
Painting felt way too instant gratification for me. I
wow.
did weaving. I was literally making cloth a thread at a time. So it shouldn't surprise anyone that I wanted to write a book one word at a time.
That
Because I'm
that
like,
that reminds me of this documentary called "It Might Get Loud." It's Jack White from the White Stripes, and The Edge from U2, and uh, Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin. And the three of them, like it's them talking about playing guitar, like the whole movie. But it's these vignettes, and they're like traveling around the country and like seeing different things, and they're talking about their different styles. And the film opens with this scene of Jack White with a piece of a 2x4 about this long, and he's nailing a nail into each end, and he's winding a guitar string around, and he's putting a pickup under there, and he cranks and he makes a guitar out of a board, two nails, some wire, and a pickup, and he's like playing this thing with a slide, and he starts talking. He says, in the book of Genesis, like God kicks out Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, and he tells them that they have to toil in the soil to make their way. And he said, anything worth making is worth sweating over and toiling and bending the thing to your will. And he draws this crazy spiritual metaphor out of playing guitar, which is
I
guitar.
totally identify with, even though I
But I
don't.
totally got it. I was like, yeah, like anything worth doing is worth sweating at and like really getting in there. And anyway, it's a crap. But when you said that about one thread at a time, I was like, that's Abby gets it.
I mean, sometimes my husband and I will look at each other, and here I am, like, in the middle of trying to write some book, and he's trying to do something like, equally terrible, and he'll be like, why can't we just be those people that are content to like eat dinner and turn on the TV? And I'm like, I don't know, but wouldn't that just be such a glorious life if we weren't into like then throwing ourselves heart and soul into some like thankless thing like writing a book?
Right.
Hopefully in
Right.
the end it's not thankless, but I mean, I'll probably be dead by the time the kids all remember the name of Stu the Duck, but not me. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But well, on
So
that dark note, you got to change the subject or we're ending on a
right,
downer.
right. So the ultimate answer is that we keep trying. We keep growing as writers. This is not uh, a one time to get it right proposition.
Mhm.
This is you're you're ultimately trying to build a lifetime of work, and you're going to get better, and your audience is going to grow, and they're going to connect with the things that you're doing, and they're going to grow with you. And we need to get these ideas out of our head that it's either strike it rich out of the gate or give up.
Yeah.
We're building a body of work. We're building something that's going to outlive us, outlast us. How many books? Speaking of Jane Austen, her body of work way outlived her,
Mm.
and that should be our goal: is to have a body of work that lives on after we're gone and continues to affect people. And if we have that mindset, the setbacks of this launch, or this one wasn't as well received, or maybe this book was ahead of its time, or whatever,
Mhm.
those things
Uh-oh. You froze up again, Hank.
get, the better we get at doing the thing. And that's what we all want anyway.
Yeah. Well, thank you for motivating them at the end.
You got it. And thank you all for, going on this crazy journey with us, because we're all at different points. And I love talking with our folks who are writing their first book, and all of the anxiety that goes with that, but all the excitement that's wrapped up in that anxiety.
Yeah.
And this is a beautiful place to be, and know that the thing that you publish, and you will publish, um it will be the best version of you right now. And next year we'll get to see a different version of you. And this is the great thing about making art, is it's never um this is all we'll ever be. It's a log of where we were in the world.
Also, special shout out to those of you who ditched Doug to join us from the very beginning. Tip of the hat, right? There we go. It's not a competition, but it's a
No,
competition.
it's totally a competition.
Competition.
Yeah. We love you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Bye,
And we'll
everybody.
see you next time. Bye bye.